Please welcome into the show Mr. Dan Geltrude, America's accountant. Dan, thanks for bringing this to our attention. Thanks for being on the show. Happy Monday, all those things. How does this work? How would this work?
Well, when Trump floated this idea, I was like, what? And then obviously I had to delve deeper into the numbers here to see how this works. So as you said, it was up until 1913, there was no income tax, right? It was all based on tariffs. So let's see if we could return to that 100 plus years later. What would it take? So, Scott, we got to start with the numbers. So we collect over 4.2 trillion in income and payroll taxes annually. Now, we only have about 4 trillion in imports. That's in total. So in order to be able to meet that difference there, you're talking about 100% tariffs. But also keep in mind, just because we're collecting over 4 trillion doesn't mean that's what we're spending. As you know, we're spending like 6 trillion.
Yes, we are.
So you have this shortfall. So what do? Well, if they're going to try to do this massive cuts in spending, is that a good thing? Yes, that's a great thing. But you got some challenges. Congress, I can't see them going for this. And the reason for that is that the tax code gives the government tremendous control over what people do and don't do, right? Because they tax things that they don't want you to do, and they'll give you cuts on stuff where they want to lead you in that direction. So they would have to give up a lot of control. Now, if we talk about what this looks like, if you actually did it, well, obviously, super simplifies the tax code and the compliance costs go away. That's great. And tariffs also will incentivize domestic production. We like that, and it'll create jobs. But is it realistic, Scott? I don't think so. I think, like you mentioned, a flat tax is probably better, or some combination of perhaps a value-added tax, a national sales tax, or some carbon and sin taxes, and you could probably make it work, but it will not be easy.
Yeah, I mean, I have just a question. I shouldn't ask a question I don't know the answer to, but I mean, I feel like this progressive tax is bad. But I also think a fair tax is fair. What are the stumbling blocks for even getting the fair tax through? Because I think fair taxes would be kind of like the hybrid on the way to tariffs and, no taxes.
Well, if you were talking about something like that, Scott, the whole point of the progressive tax, meaning the more you make, the more you pay, you got to remember, almost half the country pays no income tax at all. So implementing any type of income tax across the board, meaning you have to pay something, means it's a huge tax increase. And that's exactly what I believe that the stumbling block would be. To me, though, Scott, if you want to incentivize people, you shouldn't tax them on their income. Tax them on the things that they use their money for, right? So if they save it, they get to save more. If they want to spend it, then the taxes get paid.
Yeah, I mean, like as you well know, I have a British passport, lived there for 16 years, and they've got the VAT, value-added tax, and it's basically a tax on what you spend, right? So if you don't want to pay any tax, just don't spend any money. I mean, that's as simple as it gets, right? I mean, they do have an actual national tax, but spending on your outcome versus your income is an interesting idea. And I don't know how that would change the economy, though, right? Because that could slow down maybe an already slowing down economy. It's going to be one of those dicey things going forward. But the value-added tax is up around 20%. So if everybody just put in their brain they would have suddenly overnight a 20% sales tax, there'd probably be some pushback on that as well.
Yeah, there absolutely would be. And again, you know what the problem is with taxes? When you start off with a new plan, Scott, generally those taxes, let's say, could be reasonable. But as the politicians spend and spend and spend, well, the taxes have to go up. So it really comes down to this. No matter what plan you put in place, tariffs is not a bad one, obviously, to deal with China and some of our other not so friendly friends out there. It's not a bad thing to do. But the problem is because we're so addicted to spending, you have no choice but to continue to tax. So if Trump were to get elected and he's going to put Elon Musk in charge of government efficiency and effectiveness, maybe, just maybe, you can make some progress in that area.
Well, there's a thin thread going through this whole show. We're starting with you with tax. We've got handouts in the next segment and ultimately the debt in the third segment. So it all goes together here today. I don't know how that happened, but it worked. But I appreciate you coming on because I just like the idea that we're talking about tax cuts in a different way to kind of reshape things. So appreciate you those notes. It was a great note. Thank you very much, Dan. We do read it. Dan Geltrude coming to us from Nutley, New Jersey.